My name is Emma Carter. I was 34 years old the morning my family drove 3 hours with a realtor in the passenger seat and plans to sell a ranch they believed belonged to them. They had spreadsheets. They had ideas about percentages. They had already discussed who deserved what. What they didn't have was the truth. Because 3 years earlier, without telling anyone, my grandfather signed every acre into my name. But that morning wasn't really the beginning. The beginning happened 9 years earlier, on my 25th birthday, with a phone call and 11 words that changed my life. You're the strong one. Chloe needs us more. That sentence had been my family's religion for as long as I could remember. I was Emma, reliable daughter, responsible daughter, quiet daughter. My younger sister Chloe was different. Chloe was emotional, fragile, always in crisis. At least that's what everyone called her. Growing up in our house meant understanding one rule. There was only enough attention for one child at a time. And somehow it was never my turn. If Chloe had a bad week, family plans changed. If Chloe had a rough breakup, holidays revolved around her. If Chloe felt anxious, everyone stopped breathing until she felt better. I wasn't jealous. Not at first. When you're a kid, you explain things in ways that protect the people you love. I told myself she needed more. I told myself I was lucky. I told myself being independent meant being special. Later I realized independence can become another word for neglect when people use it to excuse never showing up. Back then, I still believed things would eventually balance out. Birthdays, graduations, big moments. I thought one day they'd look up and see me. That year I truly believed my 25th birthday would be different. I worked at an agricultural supply store outside town. Nothing glamorous, long hours, dust everywhere, but I liked the work. I'd been saving money and planning to apply to veterinary programs eventually. Slowly, carefully. No one was helping me financially, so I had learned to build plans the same way people build fences, one post at a time. For my birthday I kept expectations simple. I reserved a private room at a steakhouse. 8 seats, small cake, no gift. I paid the deposit myself, $100, which wasn't nothing back then. I drove to my parents' house on Tuesday evening to tell them in person. Mom was at the kitchen table sorting bills. Dad was watching television with the volume too low. Chloe wasn't there. I remember feeling hopeful, which feels embarrassing now. Saturday, I said. 7 o'clock. Dinner. Mom nodded. Dad smiled politely. I stood there another second. Then I asked, nothing else planned? Mom paused just long enough, then smiled. We should be okay. Should, not would. Should. But I ignored it. I left smiling. That entire week I let myself imagine stupid little things. Dad making a toast. Mom taking photos. Everybody sitting at the table because they wanted to. I even bought myself a new sweater. Thursday afternoon Chloe sent a message in the family group chat. Feeling weird lately. Anxious. Scared. Mom replied immediately. Heart emojis. Concern. Calls. Support. Within hours the conversation turned into discussions about Chloe being overwhelmed. By Friday evening there was suddenly major news. Her boyfriend proposed. Everyone was excited. And apparently, they wanted to celebrate Saturday night. 7 o'clock. Exactly my reservation time. Same restaurant. I stared at my phone. Then called Chloe. She answered softly, like she already knew. That's my birthday dinner. Pause. Oh. Another pause. I forgot. She hadn't. People don't accidentally reserve your exact restaurant and exact time. Then she said it. The sentence she always used. Can't we combine them? Combine. My birthday becoming background decoration for her engagement. I laughed. Not because it was funny. Because something in me finally got tired. No. Silence. Then she sighed. Like I was being difficult. I called Mom. I suggested another day. Another restaurant. Simple solutions. She listened quietly. Then she said, Emma, Chloe's in a delicate place right now. Delicate. That word. I hated that word. Because nobody delicate ever had to sacrifice. Only people like me did. Can't you be flexible? Flexible. That was my title. Strong. Flexible. Reliable. The child who understood. I sat on my bed after the call and started adding things up. Graduation. Cancelled trips. Missed games. Forgotten celebrations. Years of rearranging myself. Years of pretending it didn't hurt. Saturday came. Noon. Mom called. Her voice sounded gentle. Like she expected gratitude. We're doing Chloe's engagement dinner tonight. Then, we'll celebrate you another time. Another time. A magical future date that never arrived. I stood in my apartment kitchen, looked at sunlight crossing the floor, and asked quietly, why is it always me? She answered immediately. No hesitation. No cruelty. Which somehow made it worse. You're the strong one. Then, Chloe needs us more. That was it. Not anger. Not apology. Just truth. The kind she never realized she was admitting. I stood there after the call ended, and for the first time, I wasn't heartbroken. I was calm. Completely calm. Because suddenly everything made sense. I wasn't forgotten. I wasn't overlooked. I was assigned. I had been assigned the role of person who will understand. And nobody intended to change it. I canceled my reservation. Told the restaurant to keep the deposit. Then I packed. Not dramatically. Not angrily. I took a duffel bag. 2 pairs of jeans. Work clothes. Savings. Boots. That was all. I didn't know exactly where I was going. But I knew who I wasn't staying for. 3 hours east lived my grandfather, Walter Hayes, Mom's father. The family family called him difficult, stubborn, proud. They talked about his ranch like it was dying. Like him, he had never missed a birthday, never forgotten to call, never made me compete for affection. I left around 4 in the afternoon, quarter tank of gas, phone mostly silent. I drove. At a gas station halfway there, I finally called him. He answered on the second ring. Emma? I swallowed. Can I stay a while? No questions, no speeches, just doors open. I got there after midnight. Old porch light glowing, broken fence, weathered barn, Grandpa sitting outside with 2 mugs. He looked at me once, moved over, patted the step, and said, "Rough day?" That was it. No fixing, no explaining, no making me justify pain. I sat beside him, and everything came out. The birthday, the engagement, the sentence, strong one. He listened, then stared into the dark, finally said, "Your mother learned the wrong lesson." I looked at him. He nodded toward the ranch. Land doesn't care who gets chosen. I frowned. He smiled. Land only responds to who shows up. I didn't understand then, but I would. The next morning, my real life started. The place that didn't ask me to earn love. The ranch looked worse in daylight. At night it had felt quiet. By morning it looked exhausted. Fence rails leaned sideways. Paint peeled off the barn and stripped. Equipment sat in uneven rows like nobody had touched it in years. And maybe nobody really had. Grandpa Walter was 71 and still trying to run 80 acres mostly by himself. 6 horses. A collapsing roof. Fields that had stopped pretending they were maintained. I stood on the porch holding coffee and wondered what exactly I had driven toward. Walter stood beside me, looked across the land, then shrugged. Well, I waited. He looked at me. You staying or sightseeing? No speech, no emotional rescue, just a question. And somehow that felt more respectful than concern. That morning he made egg, then laid out terms. Not charity, terms. I've got land and no energy. He pointed at me. You've got energy and nowhere to point it. I laughed. He didn't. He stood up, walked to the wall, pulled down a pair of old brown leatherwork gloves. The leather was cracked, soft at the knuckles, worn smooth. These were my father's. He handed them to me. I pulled them on. Too big. They'll fit eventually. I thought he meant literally. I had no idea. That first week nearly sent me back home. I had never repaired fencing, never handled sick horses, never worked 10-hour outdoor days. By day 3 my hands burned. By day 5 my shoulders felt broken. I dropped feed buckets, hammered my thumb, cried once in the barn where nobody saw. And every morning, Walter acted like I already belonged there. No praise, no pressure, no scorekeeping, just breakfast, work, dinner, repeat. Nobody asked me to justify existing. That alone felt unfamiliar. I stopped checking my phone. Nobody from home noticed. Not immediately. Days passed, then weeks. No calls, no messages, no where are you? Nothing. You spend years thinking people need you. Then silence teaches you they only needed access. One afternoon I realized something. Nobody was coming to get me. And unexpectedly, that hurt less than I thought, because I also realized I didn't want them to. A month later spring arrived, and with it, Willow. A neighbor pulled in towing a battered horse trailer. Inside stood the skinniest mare I'd ever seen. Dark coat, ribs visible, eyes completely shut down. The neighbor explained she'd been abandoned after a foreclosure. Nobody wanted her. Too expensive, too damaged. Vet said recovery wasn't guaranteed. Walter looked at me. I looked at the horse. Then I said the obvious. We can't afford this. Walter nodded, then opened the trailer. We can't afford not to. That became the ranch business model for years. Bad decisions powered by compassion. We named her Willow. The first month was brutal. Tiny meals, careful feeding, vet visit, monitoring, waiting. You couldn't rush recovery. Feed too fast. You hurt her. Push too hard. She shut down. I started spending evenings sitting quietly in her stall. Not touching, just being there. She flinched at movement, wouldn't meet my eyes, wouldn't walk toward people. And one night, I realized something that hit harder than I expected. I understood her. Not dramatically, not romantically. I just understood what it felt like to learn your needs were inconvenient, to stop asking, to become easy because easy survives. Willow expected disappointment. So had I. Weeks passed. Then one evening, I opened the gate, and instead of standing frozen, she walked toward me. Slow, careful. But she came. I sat in the dirt and cried. Not because of the horse, because something inside me recognized itself. That summer I worked harder. Too hard. I wanted to prove something. To Walter. To myself. To people who weren't even watching. I stayed outside too long. Refused help. Fixed things badly. Worked through pain. One evening Walter found me trying to reset fence posts alone in rain. He what? Didn't help. Eventually I snapped. You gonna stand there? He nodded. Yep. I glared. He said, you think strength means doing everything alone? I looked away. He crossed his arms. That's not strength. Pause. That's fear dressed up as independence. I hated him for saying it, because he was right. I'd spent my entire life becoming low maintenance. Not because I wanted freedom, because I learned needing people cost too much. Walter walked over, took the shovel, handed it back. Ask for help. I said nothing. He shrugged. Or keep proving your mother right. That one landed. Next morning, I called a neighbor, borrowed equipment, accepted help. Field finished in hours. Neighbor stayed for coffee. Nobody made me earn it. That felt stranger than hard work. Months months turned into a year. Something changed. People started showing up. Not family. Actual people. A woman named Margaret boarded a retired horse. Then recommended us. Another client came. Then another. Someone asked if we trained rescues. Someone asked if we offered lessons. Suddenly, money. Not huge money, but movement. Hope. I started learning business. Tracking expenses. Repair schedules. Feed costs. Walter treated me like a partner. Not granddaughter. Partner. One evening he introduced me to someone in town. This is Emma. Pause. She runs the place. I turned away pretending to look at equipment. Because nobody had ever introduced me like that. Not helps. Not assists. Runs. I was 26. Exhausted. Sunburned. Hands ruined. And happier than I remembered being. Not because life became easy. Because effort finally made sense. You fixed something. It stayed fixed. You fed something. It trusted you. You worked. Results appeared. No favorite. No emotional elections. No competition. Then, after 18 months, my mother called. I almost didn't answer. But hope is stubborn. I picked up. Her voice was warm. Too warm. Emma. Pause. We miss you. And before I could respond, the ask arrived. Chloe was struggling. Money problems. Things had been hard. Could I help? Just temporarily. I stood in the barn. Looked around. Thought about birthdays. Graduation. Silence. Then asked one question. How did you get my number? Pause. Chloe found your website. Website. Not daughter. Website. That told me everything. I said no. Politely. Then hung up. And for the first time, I didn't feel guilty. I just went back to work. That should have been the end. But it wasn't. Because people who think they still own access usually come back. And mine were just beginning to notice something. The failing ranch. The embarrassing old man. The granddaughter nobody chose. Had started becoming valuable. And value attracts attention. Especially from people who taught you they never had enough to give. They thought they were inheriting a ranch. Success arrived quietly. No dramatic moment. No celebration. Just one ordinary evening. I was leaning against the arena fence drinking coffee while the horses settled for the night. And suddenly I realized I wasn't waiting anymore. Not for approval. Not for a call. Not for somebody to finally notice me. I had stopped checking. That was new. By year 3 things looked different. The roof had been replaced. The south pasture reopened. Boarding stalls filled. Training clients started coming from outside the county. People told people. Then more people came. Walter kept pretending none of it impressed him. But I'd catch him showing visitors around. Talking like he wasn't proud. Talking like a man trying badly not to smile. This arena? He'd shrug. Emma figured that out. That sentence did more for me than praise ever could. Because there was no performance attached. No transaction. No look what we sacrificed for you. Just acknowledgement. Simple. Clean. Meanwhile Willow transformed. The horse nobody wanted became impossible to ignore. Healthy. Strong. Smart. People started bringing difficult horses. The nervous ones. The stubborn ones. The ones labeled impossible. And I got good at helping them. Which shouldn't have surprised me. I'd spent my whole life learning how living things react when love becomes unpredictable. Turns out that knowledge transfers. By year 4, I hired help. Her name was Lily. 17. Quiet. Sharp. Showed up for seasonal work and never really left. She reminded me of myself. Not because she talked much. Because she apologized too often. She'd say sorry for asking questions. Sorry for needing clarification. Sorry for existing loudly. I recognized that language. I stopped answering apologies. Eventually she stopped offering them. That felt important. Around that time another person started appearing more often. Dr. Ethan Cole. Large animal veterinarian. Professional. Calm. Annoyingly observant. He started stopping by after calls. Then staying. Then helping. One evening he fixed a gate without being asked. I thanked him. He shrugged. Look broken. People who help quietly are dangerous. You start expecting them. I wasn't ready for that. So I ignored it. Worked harder. Changed subject. Moved on. Walter noticed. Of course he did. One evening he watched Ethan leave. Then said, "You always run when people show up." I frowned. He sipped coffee. "You're good at surviving." Pause. Still learning living. I ignored him. Naturally. That winter, everything changed. Walter collapsed. Nothing dramatic. No movie moment. Just couldn't stand up. Hospital. Test. Heart. Doctor languid. Careful voices. Too much silence. The message underneath all of it was simple. Not immediate, but serious. Walter came home quieter. Smaller. I rearranged everything. Reduced clients. Moved schedules. Started staying closer to the house. And news traveled faster than I expected. 3 days later, my mother called. Not to ask about me. Not to ask about the ranch. Straight to Walter. Health update. Questions. Concern. Concern she hadn't shown in years. Then she asked casually, "How's the property doing?" There it was. I recognized the tone immediately. Inventory. Not love. Walter overheard. I expected anger. Instead he smiled. Then said something strange. "Invite them." I stared. What? He looked out the window. People tell the truth when they think they're winning. I didn't understand. But I listened. So they came. 3 cars. 3 hours. Mom, Dad, Chloe, walking into the ranch like returning investors. First thing my mother did, she looked at the land. Not Walter. The land. Her eyes moved. Arena. Barn. Equipment. Client. Calculations. I watched her realize something. This place had value now. She hugged me. Too warm. Too long. Like someone reconnecting with opportunity. Chloe looked around, smiled. Wow. Pause. You really fixed it. Really fixed it. Like she was complimenting landscaping. Walter sat in his chair, received concern, listened politely. Then the questions started. How many acres? Any loans? Business profitable? Estate planning? Paperwork? Every answer Walter gave was identical. Ask Emma. Every time. I watched my mother smile tighter. That weekend she performed grief before grief existed. Family dinners, stories, future plans. And she kept saying words like, when the time comes, when things get settled, when everything gets divided. Divided. Interesting word, because nobody had mentioned dividing anything. After they left, I stood in the kitchen. Walter looked amused. Then he said, they think they're inheriting. I laughed. He didn't. That should have warned me. Months later, my cousin Rachel texted me. 3 words. You need this. Screenshot attached. Family group chat. Not mine. A new one. I'd been removed. Nobody told me. Inside the chat, my mother had written, once Dad passes, we sell the ranch, then split everything evenly. Emma can keep a few horses if she's reasonable. I read it 3 times. Reasonable. After years. After rebuilding. After making something valuable. My reward was permission to keep horses. I didn't cry. I saved the screenshot. Walked outside. Found Walter. Showed him. He read quietly. Long silence. Then, he laughed. Not happy. Not surprised. Just tired. That sounds like my daughter. He handed the phone back. Then said, interesting. That was all. Interesting. Later that night, he sat across from me, looked serious, and said, whoever gets this place should have earned it. I nodded. Didn't think much of it, because people say emotional things. Promises. Intentions. I didn't trust intentions anymore. I trusted paperwork, so I ignored it. Went back to work. Built plans. Expanded operations. Started acting like nothing would ever belong to me, because that felt safer. But somewhere, without me knowing, Walter had already made a decision. And my family, busy dividing land they didn't own, had no idea the story they were writing already had an ending. They just hadn't reached it yet.